Hello everybody and welcome back to another video on my channel. It is Kevin here, Kev's, Mini by Kev, whatever you want to call me. I said Kev's, I've literally never gone by Kev's in my life. In this week's video, I'm going to recreate an old miniature of mine. I don't have it, I actually sold it on my Etsy a long time ago. I always wonder where my shadow boxes go when I sell them. I would love if somebody would like show me it in their space. I have learned a lot since I started making miniatures and I decided I want to try and recreate one of my old ones. So this week, my cat is next to me, one second. Somebody said they liked seeing my cat last week. Here he is again. Doesn't like the camera. I have a cat and a dog. The cat I can pick up, the dog I can't. I wanted to recreate something I made in the past, so this week I'm going to recreate a 90s girl's bedroom wall. I actually shared a room with my sister back a long time ago when I was a kid. She was a teen in the 90s, and so for some reason there's just like a part of my brain that this is like implanted on that I just feel like I need to make it in miniature. And like I said, I made it a long time ago, so I feel like I've learned new things about miniatures and how to do them better, I hope. And so I kind of want to just like redo this. I'm still figuring out this lighting. Look at, how do people with glasses make videos with lighting? I don't get it. Anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling. I'm gonna turn the camera around. We're gonna start creating and yeah, we're gonna see how this goes. A little bit of a disclaimer here. If you see two shadow boxes throughout this video, at any time, I originally was going to make two of these just slightly different, and then I decided at some point to just cut off the second one and only work on the one. So if you see a second, you can ignore that. Also, if you buy these shadow boxes and you're trying to open them, make sure you have something to pry these open. Don't do it with your fingers and hurt yourself like I did. Make sure you have some tweezers or something. In the spirit of trying to use things that I already had, I had this scrapbook paper. I'm not even sure what it was originally for, but I figured, why not use it? It looks like it could be in a 90s girl's bedroom, right? I was originally going to trim it with the paper cutter that you just saw, but then decided that why not glue it down and then I could flip it over and trim it. I figured if I try and do it with a paper cutter, it may be uneven, it may not be the right size. I tend to measure twice, cut once, and that one cut is incorrect. So instead, I just went ahead and glued it down. And so I put lots of glue down. Then I don't remember what I used, maybe some scrap mat board, and then just made sure it was a very thin line so that way it would not bubble at all. Once again, in the spirit of using what you have, I have these two like repair stain markers that I wanted to try out on popsicle sticks so that way I could see what would be a better color. I already had these from when I had damaged some wooden stuff in my house, and so I wanted to check and see which color I liked better because I only needed like 6 popsicle sticks and didn't want to paint them. In the end, I ended up going with the lighter stain just because I think it looked better with the pink than the dark one. I was afraid that maybe the dark one would just stand out a little too much. So I went with the lighter of the two. I did things a little out of order, but while I was waiting for this to dry is when I tested the different stains. So once this was dry, I went ahead and cut it out, and this is what it looks like. I know it can be kind of hard to see what I'm doing here because I did have to blur out something in the background that just had some personal information in it that I should have removed, but I forgot. But anyway, what I'm doing here is I'm taking some scrap pieces of the scrapbooking paper and I'm cutting it to fit the side. So that way the wallpaper in the room box kind of folds around the edge a little bit, if that makes sense. Next, I busted out some of my popsicle sticks, one of the many popsicle sticks I have, and I just went ahead and started painting them with the stain, which is not really painting, it's staining. Once the stain was all dry, I cut the popsicle sticks in just varying lengths so that way they weren't all exactly the same and glued them in to be the floor. And also, this is where the personal information disappears and we can go back to no more censoring. If you follow me on TikTok or you've seen any of my older videos, you may know I enjoy making TVs. I don't know why, but generally I make an older TV than this. This is going to be one from the 90s. So I found one online that I was kind of trying to imitate, but I kind of took like 2 or 3, made them my own. And then I have this bullet journal that I kind of use as a miniature sketchbook, and I put all my ideas in there. So I went ahead and sketched out what I wanted the TV to look like and what size it was going to be. Once I was done in the sketchbook, I drew and cut out the pieces of the TV, and this is what it looked like before I had actually cut out the center part. And this is what it looks like once I cut the pieces out. They're going to kind of stack together kind of like puzzle pieces to fit the TV screen inside of it. I guess instead of stack, I meant more slide into it, and this is what I did. I painted it black, and then the bottom part is a lighter gray. It's gonna kind of just slide in there, so that way it looks like the bottom speaker part of an older TV. After that, I made a couple of buttons to go on the TV as well because you need buttons for a TV to work. And then I got some clear packaging from some kind of toy. I don't even know what, but I always use the packaging from a toy to make TV screens because, you know, reduce, reuse, recycle. And I went ahead and glued that on as well as the speaker and the buttons. Off screen, I also printed out the TV show that I wanted to be on the TV, just the title screen, which is My So-Called Life. I've actually never watched it, but I know my sister really likes it, and a lot of people that were teenagers in the 90s seem to really love the show, and I don't know, I thought it would look cool. I also came up with the fake name for the TV brand. I didn't have a paintbrush that was small enough, so what I actually did was I took the end of a mechanical pencil, I dipped that in white paint, and then I slowly wrote the TV name because I figured I can break off the end piece of a mechanical pencil, like the actual lead, and not ruin it. So if you ever need a really thin paintbrush and you don't have one, see if you have a mechanical pencil. However, I did think it was too big, so I painted back over it with black, and I went back in and I painted it really, really tiny. So tiny, in fact, that you can't even really read it, and it's a little smudged, but TV names weren't super huge on the TV, so I needed to like try and get that across without making it gigantic. So it does say the same thing. It is just a made-up TV brand. It's just incredibly tiny and smudged, so no one can probably read it but me, because I know what the letters are supposed to be. After the name, I went ahead off screen and dotted the speaker with black on the end of the mechanical pencil to make it look more like a speaker. It's a little leopard print looking, but I think it gets the point across even though it's not perfect. But then I went ahead and glued on the tiniest little buttons onto the TV. Here is what the TV looked like when I was satisfied and ready to put it into the overall Shadowbox diorama. But before I could go in, I had to go back to my little sketchbook, and I wanted to make a dresser to put into this scene as well that the TV would rest on top of. Recently, while thrifting, I got this industrial-sized paper cutter that also cuts mat board. This thing is over $100 at the craft store, and I got it for $5.99 before my coupon. All I'm saying is don't discount the discount/thrift stores because you never know what kind of craft supplies you're going to get or tools you're going to get for incredibly cheap. I could not believe I found this there. And this one has a self-sharpening blade, so it's basically in perfect condition. The only thing that's not is the bottom rubber pieces have a little bit of black marks on them. And honestly, for $95+ off, I'll take it. Now that I'm done talking about how much I love the thrift store, let's get back to the diorama. What I'm doing here is I'm actually cutting the mat board pieces that I measured out to make the dresser. Here I'm just making sure they're the right length for both sides, that way the dresser stands correctly. Let me tell you, this thing cuts so well. I mean, it can cut multiple pieces of mat board at once. I don't know if I would do that necessarily, but it really is beautiful and, you know, discounted. Sorry. I just love the thrift store. I can't help it. Here I am cutting the face of the dresser. As you can see, it cuts very well. And then I moved on to cutting out all the other pieces and getting all the pieces together I needed to make the frame to the dresser. Through the magic of editing, you don't need to sit through 10 minutes of me trying to glue this thing together and messing up. But as you can see here, I put marks on the front of the dresser so I knew exactly where to lay out the pieces for the drawers. These will not be functioning drawers, they're just for aesthetics. If you're wondering why I have a lot of mat board in different colors, I have a friend named Bridget who bought a bunch of mat board. I don't even remember what for, but she gave me a bunch of offcuts that I could use for crafting. And you know, again, reduce, reuse, recycle. If someone's giving you free materials, craft with it. Find a way, because it'll save you some money. To make it look like a real dresser, I wanted the drawers to be evenly spaced apart, so I marked down with pencil where I wanted them, and then I put a 1, 2, 3 block on top to hold them down while they glued so they wouldn't come askew. After I had the two main drawers down, which are the bottom two, it was a lot easier to line up all the other ones, although it did take a little bit of finagling to make sure that there was the correct space between each drawer, because again, I wanted them to line up and look like a real dresser. After they were dry, I, tried to pick these up and almost crushed it, as I tend to do. I tend to drop things quite a bit. Here's the dresser, and then I went in with paint. I won't bore you with making you sit through all the different coats it took to cover up this mat board, but rest assured, it took maybe 4, maybe 5 coats of paint to completely cover this weird colored mat board. Again, I'm very appreciative of my friend. Maybe I should have used the other side, which was a more neutral white tone. Because this is a remake or a re-envisioning of a former diorama that I've made, I actually already had all these magazine covers and things picked out in a Word document. I did go in and add some, remove some, so it is slightly different, but all I did was print out this paper and start cutting out the covers and the pictures I wanted to use in the diorama. I cut out all the pictures in between the different drying times for the front of the dresser. After that was done, I had these little tiny wooden, I don't even know what they are. I think it was maybe a chopstick or a tiny dowel. I'm forgetting now, but I cut them in half to be little poles, like chunky poles on old 90s furniture. If you were alive back then, I think you know what I'm talking about. You know how those furniture sometimes have those giant poles, those giant chunky poles? That's what I was going for. I also used the ruler to try and make sure that they were all lined up perfectly. It's not 100% perfect, but I think it's close enough that you won't notice unless you're really, really, really looking. I came back in with the white paint to cover up all the chunky poles to make them match the rest of the dresser. Something I've noticed when painting miniatures is that if you do too thick of a coat, it will dry really strange looking, like really, really thick in a way that you don't want, that makes it less believable as a miniature. So what you have to do is do multiple coats of a thinner coat. You're gonna do multiple thin coats. If you do one and you try to cover everything in one go, in my experience, it'll make it chunk up really bad. I assembled the Mall Madness board game, which was also part of my printable that I made a long time ago, and just started rearranging things in the room, or arranging, I guess, because it was the first time, to see what it would look like and how I would like it. Then I pulled out some fabrics that I could use as some like clothing, maybe a t-shirt or something, and really just played around with where I thought everything would look best. And once I decided, I went ahead and glued in the dresser as well as the TV, because those didn't have a lot of wiggle room. It's not that wide of a scene. As always, I used my 1, 2, 3 blocks to put on top while they dried. I went ahead and put in a little pile of fabric in the corner, as well as the Mall Madness. The pile of fabric was really just tiny little cutoffs of the fabric, balled up with watered down glue and kind of just stuck into different places to look like clothing had been piling up around the room. Once everything was good and dry, I pulled out all those pictures I cut out and I just started arranging things. I wasn't sure what I really wanted to be like a focal point or what I wanted to stand out the most. So I kind of just set things down, rearranged it. How could I fit more stuff? You know, what looked the best. And honestly, this gave me an appreciation for things like magazine layout, because I was like, wow, you really have to figure out where, like, what looks good best next to each other. And it was just a lot. This part, it was fun, but it's a lot of work to try and make sure, oh, is there 2 people next to each other? Is there 2 colors next to each other? Does this outshine this? And blah, 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 blah. It was a lot of work, but fun work, just more than I was expecting. Then I started gluing them on, but really what I wanted to show you was here on top of the dresser and on top of the TV, you can kind of see some of the Polaroids that I had printed out. And I just thought these would be fun scattered on the dresser, thinking like maybe the girl that lived in this room had a bunch of pictures of her friends and just kind of threw them. However, fun fact, all those Polaroids are of the Clueless cast. So, little fun fact for you. The thing I forgot to explain until I was actually editing this video is that I realized after I did the voiceover and I wanted to make an end clip that I didn't actually have the project on me. Hence, the clips and explanation you're about to see. I recorded what it looked like in my storage unit. Didn't think to bring it home with me so I could like show it again. The thing where at the end I show it, I hold it. So I don't have it with me. It's in storage. So luckily you just watched the video so you'll see what it looks like, but I don't have it on me. I really like it. I like how it turned out. I actually forgot how much I liked it until I went back to my storage unit and saw it again, and I was like, oh yeah, I do really like how this turned out. There's just something about it that I feel like there's like, I created this story in my head. Like one of the Polaroids is underneath the dresser, so I was like, maybe that's one of like the friends she got angry at that week and she just like tossed it. And there was some clothing kicked underneath the dresser, and I was like, oh, maybe she just like was like, oh, I hate this shirt, and like kicked it. I don't know. I just like came up with this story in my head of who the person was that lived in this room. And so I really liked it. I feel like last time I did one, it was mostly just the wall covered in posters, and this one had more things going into it, which I feel like really made a story, which I really liked. But that's all for this week. Next week, we got a doozy. Another thing from my past has been infecting my brain that I need to make in miniatures. So we're gonna see if I can do it. I might fail, but we'll see. If you like me or you like miniatures, make sure you hit that subscribe button below and hit that like button below because it really helps me out. And I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.